So following the number of underage teenagers who gave birth on Christmas Day, the Department of Justice has reiterated the statutory rape laws and is urging communities, teachers as well as healthcare workers to protect young girls. The Sexual Offences Act of 2007 criminalizes any sexual act with children under the age of 16 and compels anyone who knows of such an act to report them to the authorities. For more on this, we are now joined by Ntombi Matjila, who is the Sexual Offences Registrar at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Ntombi, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning.
Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to the viewers.
What went through your mind when you saw some of the stories coming out on Christmas Day? So on one end, we're celebrating the birth of children born on Christmas Day, but then on the other end as well, highlighting the scourge around teenage pregnancies.
It's quite concerning because behind that pregnancy, there's a high chance that there's a perpetrator, and a perpetrator who's an overage adult person. Because when I had, instead of celebrating the birth as something which is a blessing, for me it was quite concerning on the basis that quite often than not, the people who actually impregnate these children are none other than an adult person like yourself, myself, or, you know, somebody who is exploiting them, other than them having sexual experimentation with their peers. Yeah.
Why do you think that that's still the case, and why is it still prevalent, even though, for instance, it's been years now since this country has had laws relating to statutory rape, and also the debates that have been taking place around consent and what consent means, and whether a child who's 16 years and young can actually give consent?
In fact, basically, what could or is the problem to date, even after enacting, you know, many laws, amending such laws? We don't report. It's lack of reporting. And this is what the department has actually came out and saying, let us report. Because if we don't report, we're going to say that the Sexual Offences Act or the National Register for Sex Offenders is ineffective. Because the very essence of it not being effective, it's people not reporting. Once we start reporting, we're going to see a change in attitude, a change in all these things happening. Because, for example, if a child presents themselves to me as a health professional, as a teacher or as a social worker, I must report that to the police. But you can see that is not happening. Even what Dr. Ramatuba has said, that seeing many children who are giving birth or who are falling pregnant is on the basis that there must be an adult person who is exploiting them. Because when a child presents themselves to the hospital being pregnant, the doctors will say it's what? Patient and doctor confidentiality. And if a child, as an outcry of a child who comes to me as a teacher, who is reporting that my stepfather or my father is molesting me at home, it's not supposed to be reduced to a staff room gossip. But me as an adult person, I must take this case and report. And one other thing that I need to emphasize is when you report such to the police, you are not going to be subjected to you having to give evidence in court. Because the Act says even if you have a reasonable suspicion, you must report such to the police, and the police must start investigating.
Yeah. Then why is that not happening, especially from the professional side? Like if we speak about the doctors and if we speak about the teachers as well, why is that not happening? Maybe in the household we can say it is and so forth. So maybe that could be what's at play. But when it comes to the health professional as well as the teacher, why are they not doing it?
I don't know. And this is what we are coming to say, and say there's an obligation on your part as a health professional, as a teacher, as a social worker, and so forth. Because failure to report, it's a criminal offense. So
do you know of any cases that have been brought against any teacher or a health professional who failed to report a teenage child who's below the age of 16 being pregnant?
At the moment, no.
Isn't that the problem as well?
It is a problem.
That on one end, the individuals, and let's speak about the community members,
Yes.
are not reporting.
Yes.
But then in the professional space as well, there's also a lack of reporting.
Lack of reporting. And I think the challenge could be, you know, when we have so many workshops that we currently are having, whether it be between stakeholders, wherein we are emphasizing report, report, and report, you will find that they are saying that the reason we don't report is because we don't want to go and give evidence in court on the basis that we are not even aware that such a thing has actually happened. But you're not even supposed to have evidence that it actually happened. A reasonable suspicion is enough for you to go and report.
Yeah.
So I think the understanding behind reporting, if we can emphasize that by reporting, you simply are setting this train in motion so that many other things or many other processes could be done. Like reporting, when reporting has been done, investigation can commence.
Yeah.
Once investigation and then the facts then are deduced that this thing is actually happening, it becomes now in the hands of the social worker, in the hands of the court, until a conviction then is meted out.
Yeah, and the socialization and understanding of consent, because that's another part. You'd find that somebody older would ask a girl out, perhaps maybe below the age of 16, and then eventually they go into have sexual intercourse. And the perception there is that because the girl who is below the age of 16 didn't resist, didn't say no, therefore there is no rape that is taking place. How do we get people to understand actually when it comes to the power of consent, that a 16-year-old cannot consent, a person below the age of 16 cannot consent to sex?
Yeah, it's true. Anyone below the age of 16, bottom line, even if they would have not resisted, they would have said, yes, we can do that. Legally, they cannot consent. That is why we term it statutory rape, because it's sexual intercourse or penetration with anyone who is under 16 years of age. And then you will see when it goes to the definition of who a child is anyone under the age of 18. And again, it comes to what? Consent. Once consent is lacking, if that child is 17 years under the age of 18 and so forth, and they did not give consent, then it becomes rape. And then you will see when we have amended the law further to include now vulnerable person, we have included younger women who are attending a high, who are in universities, who are in colleges or TVET. We have given them protection on the basis that we have realized that they are vulnerable in the space in which they are congregate. So if a person, consent in all these sexual offenses, consent is key. If there's no consent, then it can either be termed to say it's sexual assault, it's sexual violation, it's rape. But in all these other offenses that I've mentioned, consent is a bottom line, bottom key. That if a person did not give that, then it can become something else.
The vulnerability of the child. And when we speak about vulnerability, is it only vulnerability on the basis of the child being young? Could economic vulnerability also play a role in this? Because sometimes we hear, and we've actually seen this, of children that are selling sex. But again, these are children that are not of a consenting age.
Yeah. Economic vulnerability also plays a bigger part, because then you give them that which they lack on the basis that I will give you an iPhone, then you sleep with me. I will provide for you, I will buy you this and that, and then you sleep with me. Bottom line then, and you can see, even in families where they condone that an older man sleeps with a younger girl, the mother will even say, if you don't agree to Aldrin being your boyfriend, what are we going to eat? So socio-economic participation in families, it really plays a larger role in sexual exploitation in children. So you giving a benefit to me, then I agree to giving you that which you want, which is wrong.
Yeah. And what conversation then should we be having about, just in general now, speaking about sexual promiscuity amongst young people as well, because that plays a role. And we know sometimes alcohol also influences those decisions and that promiscuous behavior. Yeah. But there is a feeling sometimes even amongst parents that younger children and the younger generation are becoming more sexually risque in the decisions that they're taking compared to, for instance, their parents or even their grandparents when they were children.
We need to discourage that in any way possible. If we can encourage children to stay in school, for example, to wait, because sexual conduct, sexual activity in any event when you grow up being able to make your own decision, you're still gonna have that forever and ever until for as long as you want it. But for as long as you're a child, we need to discourage that every now and then, to say focus on your books, focus on what you actually want to become. These other things you will do. You will still have the time to do that. You will still have your whole life to do all sorts of things that you want to do.
Do you think at all that there's a dichotomy as well? That on one end, we speak about 16 years, you must be 16 years or older to give consent. But then when you look at the Children's Act of 2005 or even the Choice of Termination Pregnancy Act, that a child as young as 12 years old can consent to abortion.
Yes. Meaning
without
that
the knowledge of the guardian and the parents,
yes. Meaning that, you know, as a nation, we actually do consent that children are having sex.
Yeah.
And in consenting that children are having sex, or in being aware that children are having sex, we now want to create a safe space for them to go and express themselves without me knowing. Because if you would note, we had a constitutional court case in 2014, wherein initially sexual offense criminalized any sexual conduct by anyone, whether they are younger or they are older. But then, because it has got far-reaching implication for a child who is actually found experimenting with a peer to then be included in the National Register for Sex Offenders, we said that we recognize that children in any event, whether we like it or not, do engage in sexual encounters with one another. So, which is why we have created a space in saying that let's call it sexual experimentation, especially if a child gets involved with another one who is 2 years. You know, there must be a 2-year gap between the two of them. And again, if we say a child is anyone under the age of 18, we are consciously, again, wishing that a child who's under 18 can just focus in being a child. But again, we're saying, but we are aware what children are doing, which is why we have created, you know, such circumstances wherein if such a thing as pregnancy has occurred between children, then a child can go without me knowing and terminate the pregnancy. But one question that we need to ask as a society is who is behind the pregnancy. By us dealing with who is behind this pregnancy, we will, in one way or the other, be able to deter what is actually happening between children and those who are exploiting them sexually.
Yeah. Do you think that there is merit, though, to the argument that some parents are making that the laws that we have in the country, we speak about them being progressive, liberal laws, but in actual fact, what they're also doing is they're taking away the power from the parent to do the parenting, including having the oversight. I'd be, you know what, it is the law, but if I have a 12-year-old child who fall pregnant and then went to go and do an abortion without my knowledge, I'd be miserable as a parent. I'll be angry as a parent that has happened. But it is the same laws of the country that empowers their child to do that.
Yeah, it's because the laws of the country, how we then legislate, bottom line, we want to protect. even sometimes when in us doing the protection, we overstep the mark. But I would say this does not, serve as an excuse for us as parents to do parenting or to be parents. If it has happened behind your back, then it is unfortunate. But the laws are only meant to protect, which is why even when we said it's sexual experimentation, we're protecting those children to say, if now, as a parent, you know that your children are experimenting sexually, it's not going to augur well with you. So, which is why we said, at least if there's a 2-year gap, then we can begin to accept that, even if it is not easily acceptable. Yeah. But that's a dilemma that we find ourselves in, having many pieces of legislation that are aimed at protecting the conduct of children.
Ntombi Matjila, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.